Hiya folks, welcome back to the Small Business Toolbox. I'm Andy Mack and I've been self-employed for ages. By popular demand, I put out a poll on this channel a little while ago asking if anyone wanted to have a little bit of very basic Microsoft Excel spreadsheet training. A lot of you might have the opportunity to work from home at the minute, or perhaps businesses just had to shut down completely, so this might be a good opportunity to learn something new if you don't already understand the whole world of spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are, I would say, as a self-employed person, probably the most important business tool that you're going to have to learn how to use, because you can use it for everything to do with running your business. You can use it for everything from keeping track of like orders and cash flow through to generating invoices and quotes and all that sort of thing. You can do your full accounts on it. It is the electronic equivalent of like a Simplex D book, which used to get used many years ago for doing accounts. So I'm going to specifically give you a guided tour of the 2016 version of Microsoft Excel here, but whether you use Excel or Google Sheets or some other spreadsheet application, they all work in more or less the same way. You might find there's certain things that Excel does that it works a little bit differently in Google Sheets, but more or less they all spreadsheets all work in the same general kind of way. So the first thing I'm going to do, let's dive right into this, and the first thing I'm going to do is just zoom in a little bit. You've got this bar across the top here, File, Home, Insert. This kind of takes you to all the different sections of Excel. This is known as the ribbon at the top here. We're just going to go into View, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit just so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. You would normally have it just on zoom to 100%, but just so you can see the screen a bit better, I'm going to keep it on 200%. So I'm just clicking on the Home tab at the top there, and this is kind of your main functions that you're probably going to use all the time are going to be in this Home tab. You've got your scroll bars down the right hand side to scroll up and down. You've got your scroll bar at the bottom there to scroll left and right. We've got the Sheets function here at the bottom, and this allows you to add extra sheets into your spreadsheet. So you could have one sheet here that has something in it, and then another sheet down here which has something else in it. So you can add as many different sheets as you want. You can color code these sheets by right clicking on them and just pick a color, and it makes it a little bit easier to kind of identify them if you've got a lot of sheets in a spreadsheet. For now, I'm just going to get rid of all of these ones that I've just created, and to do that I'm right clicking and delete on each of the sheets. Okay, so we're back to the beginning. So what is Excel? Well, it's a glorified calculator, but it does a lot more than that. Now remember, this is the absolute basics of using spreadsheets here. So if you already know your way around spreadsheets, you might want to skip forwards a little bit. But I'm going to cover some of the really fundamental things that you need to understand. So a spreadsheet is just made up of a grid of little boxes. You've got columns that you can control across the top, and you've got rows that you control down the side. And each one of these boxes has kind of a cell reference. So each one of these is known as a cell. For example, this cell here would be column C, row 3. Okay, we'll come back to that later on. But what you can do, absolute basics, let's type some numbers into these boxes. And now let's say we want to add those numbers up. Well, actually, there's two very quick ways of adding those numbers up. The first one, if you just drag a box over it, and then if you look at the bottom underneath the scroll bar, you can see down the bottom there, it says sum 147. So those cells there add up to 147. It's also telling you how many cells there are, and there are 5, and it's also giving an average, 29.4. So there you go. If you want to do an average across a bunch of numbers, or you want to add them up, you don't even have to add any formulas or anything fancy like that. I'll show you again what I did before. Type a bunch of numbers in, missed one, and just drag a box over them. Simple as that. Start at the top, drag to the bottom, And there you can see those numbers add up to 1,013. The 6 numbers, and the average between all of those is 168.833 recurring. And that's Excel in a nutshell. Thank you very much. I shall see you next. I'm only joking. So that is one of the most basic little tips I can give straight away. If you just want to use Excel as a glorified calculator, you don't even have to type a formula in. Type the numbers in. The nice thing is, because you've typed them into a spreadsheet like this, is that you can, if you've made a mistake in one of them, you can just go in, let's say, oh, that should have been 232, and you just change it. And then you can see the sum is automatically changed down the bottom there. But a better way of doing a sum of a bunch of numbers is to use the sum function. And you can see we've got this auto sum at the top right here. And all you need to do is say, well, where do you want the total to go? Well, you normally put your total at the bottom of the list of numbers. So we'll click auto sum, and that's automatically identified a range of numbers above. Press enter. There we go. We've got a sum at the bottom there. And if that was a currency, you could make it look nice and click on the little currency auto number format there. Just click that. There we go. Got it in pounds. And if we want to make that look a bit more obvious, that's a total at the bottom there. We'll maybe put that in bold. Go into the little drop down here for the borders. And I normally like to do a top border and a double bottom border. And then that makes it pretty obvious that that's your total. You could put over in the left here, total. Maybe format that to the right. Just click the Align Right button, make that bold as well. And now, whenever you change any of these numbers, that total will automatically update itself. So you never need to touch that formula again. But the formula is an important thing to get your head around. So let's have a quick look at the formula, because we're going to start building up more and more complicated formulas, and you need to understand how formulas work to get the most out of a spreadsheet. So this little bar at the top here above your columns is known as the formula bar. And that's where you type your formula in. So you can see this formula has been automatically entered using the auto sum function. And that formula says equals sum F3 colon F8 in brackets. And that basically means add up everything from cell F3, which is this cell here, down to F8, which is that cell there. And if you go into that formula, let's say, for example, you've deleted a couple of numbers out of this, and actually you've decided you only wanted to add up these 4 cells at the top. We're not going to, for whatever reason, you don't want to include these 2 cells here. Well, what you can do, if you click on that cell, go into the formula, just click anywhere in the F3 to F8 bit. And you can see at the minute we've got a blue box highlighting the area that's getting added up. But we're going to just go to one of the corners, and we're looking for it to change to the, you sometimes have to be like pixel accurate here. But we're going to try and get that so that it's on that little diagonal arrow. And once it's on that, let's just drag up that box to those 4. And now, and then press enter. And now, if you type anything in these 2 boxes, you can see it hasn't changed the total, because that's not part of the formula. The formula is F3 to F6 now, which is that to that. Anyway, I digress. Let's just select those 2 cells, press delete, go into the formula again, and let's just drag that back down to where it was. So we're going to add up all of these cells down from F3 to F8 and press enter. And now anything we type in here automatically gets added up into the total. So you can do another total over here if you wanted. You're going to get the idea of how useful this can be. Auto sum button. Enter. There we go. Easy as that. Now, you can go through and format all those individually again, or you can use a little thing called the Format Painter in Excel. Format Painter is very handy, because it means if you just select these cells here, click on the Format Painter, top left there, and then drag them over these cells. Now, Why has it all gone hashy like that? It's gone hashy because it doesn't fit in the column. Don't panic. It just means that the numbers are too big to fit in the column. Let's just go to the top of that column there, and we'll just drag to the right a bit, make the column a bit wider. There we go. They're back. That's a normal thing in Excel. If the column's not big enough to fit the thing in that you've put in, it'll turn into hashes. Interestingly, if you just double click on the edge of a column at the top there, it'll automatically make them the correct size. So say for example we've got this column here, we've made it too small, double click on the edge of it and it'll make it the correct size. So you don't even have to drag it. Easy as that. That works for rows as well. If you've made your rows too small, double click on the row and it'll make it the correct size it needs to be to fit whatever's in there in that cell. So let's have a look at these two formulas. We've got this one here, equals sum brackets F3 colon F8. We've got this one. What do you think this one's going to be? Sum brackets H3 to H8. So there's H3, H8. Cool. So you could equally not use, let me just delete that out of there. You don't have to use the auto sum. There's a number of different ways you could do it. A really long-winded way. By the way, whenever you do a formula, it's got to have an equal sign at the front. If you don't put an equal sign, it'll just treat it as text. So if I do 15 plus 65, it'll literally just write 15 plus 65. But if I do equals 15 plus 65, it'll add it up. You see in the formula there? Equals. So a formula has to have an equal sign at the beginning. So if we were wanting to add up this column, a slightly long-winded way of doing it is that you could do equals, and then you can just click on each cell to tell it what you want to reference. So if we want to add up this cell, I'll click on that cell, and then plus that cell, plus that cell, plus that cell, plus that cell, plus that cell. Enter. There we go. That's a very long-winded way of doing the sum function. The better way is just to do equals sum brackets, and then you can just drag that area and it'll automatically do the H3 colon H8. That means do everything between H3 and H8 inclusive. Put your close brackets at the end and press enter. So there's a couple of little ways of doing formulas. Let's now say you want to add that and have another grand total. Equals, we're doing a formula, has to start with equals, equals. We'll click on this 589 first, equals that, plus that. And you can see it's automatically put the F9 and H9 in, press enter. You don't have to do it like that. You could just do equals F9 plus H9. You can type it in. It's a bit of a more awkward way of doing it. It's much easier to just do equals that plus that. Enter. Done. We'll put grand total here. Grand total. Enter. Right. You see where grand total's going off the edge there? That's because by default it's kind of aligned it to the left. Let's align it to the right. So I've got this cell here selected. I'm just going to click on the right alignment. We'll make it bold. Done. If I just undo that, go back to where it was, what you could equally do is just click on that total one there, use Format Painter, click, click, done. Let's also use Format Painter for that total. So we'll do click, Format Painter, done. And now that's got the little double line under it at the bottom there as well. So, pretty straightforward. If you want to delete stuff out of cells, drag over your cells, hit delete. Easy as that. If you want to delete entire rows, go all the way over to your left-hand side there, and you can delete whole rows out your spreadsheet by selecting them and doing delete. Now, if you select and do delete, it's deleting the contents of the rows, but not the rows themselves. But what you could equally do is select them and then right-click and then do delete. And then that deletes the rows rather than the contents of the cells. It deletes the entire row out of the spreadsheet. Handy to know both ways. There's situations where you might want to do both. For example, down here, we might have a bunch of like rubbish down here. Let's say we want to delete the contents of column G, but we don't want to delete the column itself because we want to leave a bit of a gap. Well, just select the top of the column, hit delete, and then that deletes the contents of all your cells. But if you did want to get rid of that actual column, right click, delete, and you see that's now shuffled it along. Equally, right click, insert, you can shove a column back. And you can see it's automatically copied the formatting of the adjacent cell. You don't really need to worry about that. If you want to get rid of that, go on to a blank cell that has no formatting. Use Format Painter. Click on that cell. There we go. Okay, so from that, you should understand how to make pretty much any basic formula, because you know how to do a sum between, like a sum range between 2 points. That also works across a spreadsheet as well, by the way. So if you want to put a sum over here that adds up cell F up to cell H, let's say there's figures here as well, and you want to add up across, then you can do auto sum. Auto sum will automatically have a guess at the area that you want added up. It's not always correct, but it'll have a good stab, and you can see here it's got it correct. So all you have to do, press enter, and there we go. We've got a sum going across, which is effectively F3 to H3. If we look at the formula, sum F3 colon H3. Add up everything from there to there. The mathematical functions that you're probably going to be using are going to be plus to add stuff up, a hyphen or a dash to take away, a star asterisk is for multiply, and a / to divide. Let me just write that on there. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. And you're going to have to get used to using brackets as well. Brackets get used all the time in Excel, so get used to it. Now, by using that set of rules, you can create pretty much anything. You can create invoices. You can create a very basic accounts package that adds up all your transactions over a day and all of your outgoings over a day. You know, you could easily create that just by using the formulas that I've shown you there. Have a play around with things like formatting, because formatting, you can do all sorts of things to make stuff look pretty. If you want to get rid of your grid lines, the way I normally do it, I'll just select everything and turn it white. If you don't, the grid lines won't print, so don't worry about that. But if you want everything to look like it doesn't have a grid, so you know if you click on the top of a column, that'll select that whole column. If you drag click on columns, that'll select multiple columns. Likewise, if you select a row, drag click, you can select several rows. If you want to select the whole sheet, click on this little top left bit. That selects the whole spreadsheet. And hiding the grid lines, all I do is colour everything white in the little colour drop down there, and that hides your grid lines. So you can make things look a little bit more pretty. Let's add a couple of columns here. We'll make them bold. We'll align those to the right. We'll give them a couple of different colours to make them look nice. And let's put a box around the whole lot as well. Let's just delete this here, delete that, and I'm just going to add an extra row in at the top so you can actually see this box, otherwise you'll not be able to see it. So let's put a box all the way around here. I've selected the whole lot, going into this drop down, and I'm going to do thick outside borders. There we go, easy as that. Want a slightly smaller gap at the top? Let's just squish these rows a little bit. We've got a bit of a gap at the left here. Let's just delete a couple of columns. Right click, delete. We'll make that column a little bit smaller. There we go. Absolute basics of using Microsoft Excel. Pretty much everything I've just shown you will apply to any spreadsheet. But what you could now do, for example, is you could create like an invoice template or something like that. I'm just going to bring up my invoice template that I have on the Patreon for Small Business Toolbox. If you want to download them, you'll have to sign up to my Patreon and support the channel via there. But it's only $1 a month if you want to get some of the extra downloads off there. Here is an invoice template that I've put together. And you can see everything's kind of arranged in the way that we were talking about before. We've got cells here with description. We've got quantity, unit price. Let's have a look at the formula for the total. Equals D13, which is that cell. So D13 times asterisk E13, which is that cell. So remember, whenever you're doing a formula, you've got to put an equal sign at the beginning. That's how it knows it's a formula. And then if we scroll down, here we've got a grand total at the bottom. What are we doing for the grand total? Equals sum F13 to F20. So it's adding up everything from here all the way down to here. What if you wanted to add VAT? Well, you could just add an extra column. Let's just insert a column here. Insert. I'm going to butcher this spreadsheet a little bit. What I'm actually going to do is take this whole column and move it to the left. Like that. So I've just dragged it over the contents of those cells over to the left. And then I'm going to do equals that times 1.2. I'll just put here net and inc VAT. Now, here's an interesting one that's very useful to know. We've got a formula here, equals F13 times 1.2. How do we get that formula into here? Well, you could do equals F14 times 1.2, but watch this little magic thing in Excel. If you just go into that little box on the bottom right corner of a cell, drag it down. Drag it all the way down to the bottom of where you want these formulas to end. And look at that. What's it done? It's automatically done the formula for you. The only other thing that we need to do here is tidy up the formatting a little bit. Let's just take these cells here and we'll use a format painter and we'll copy that formatting to here. The only thing now is that we've got this like black bar down here that we don't want. Let's just select this area and we want everything inside here to be no grid lines at all. So I'm going to go into borders, no border. I'm then going to just add thin borders down here. So I'm just going to do outside borders, but it's a thin type, you see. I'll do the same here and here. And then I'll do the thick border that goes all the way around there. Oops, I've missed, I'll fix that at the top. Add the black border back. There we go. Simple. But what about this grand total figure at the bottom here? At the moment, that's adding up the F column. So I'm just going to move this cell. I'm going to pick it up. You see, you get the little kind of vertical and horizontal arrows. That means you're going to move that entire cell. So I'm going to pick it up, drag it over to the left. There we go, moved. But then we might as well add an inc VAT total. Let's just take that. I'm going to copy it, Control C to copy, and I'm going to paste it into there, Control V to paste. And look, it's automatically updated the formula. Sum G13 to G20. This isn't necessarily the way I would make a VAT invoice, by the way, but it's just to show you an example of how you can use formulas in Excel to create invoices and how easy it is to change things. A couple of other things in here that I've done just to show you how I've done it. We've got a really wide column here. You can see that I've used that column for the address and for the product or the line item descriptions. And I've put all that in column B. That's worked pretty well there. At the bottom here, I've got this area where I've put like the business name and business address and things. To do that, all I've done is I've selected the cells that I want, and I've used the merge and center option. And the merge and center merges the cells together and centralizes everything in them. So if I do merge and center there, you can see that's now effectively become one big cell, and everything in that cell is centralized. If you want to change it so it's left aligned, you can use your alignment. It's just like a normal alignment. And you can also, if it's a bigger kind of cell, you can use your vertical alignment options as well. You've got top, center, bottom for vertical, and left, center, right as well. Easy peasy. If you want to make those back to normal cells, just click on it, click the merge and center again, and that'll take them back into just being normal cells. Whatever was in it will normally go to your leftmost cell. But that is the absolute basics of using spreadsheets and Microsoft Excel. I will do a follow-up where we go into some more slightly advanced functionality. I'm not going to get into really heavy stuff, but this is enough that you can get started and you can start using Excel for all sorts of stuff. Remember, you can have multiple sheets. You can add extra sheets into your spreadsheet. So you've got like your main spreadsheet that you're working in, but then you can have extra tabs down the bottom here. And again, each one of these can be anything you like. You could have sales, expenses. You can then do calculations between sheets as well. Let me just very, very quickly show you that. So I've added a new sheet in here. Let's say we want to add that number here, this total, and let's say we had a total in here. I'm just going to type a number in. There's a number in a cell there. If I go to this sheet here, I can do equals, and then go into the first sheet, that, click on it, and then I'm going to do plus, and then click on the other sheet that I put the number in, which was the instructions sheet. Click on that one, press enter, and there you go. It's added those two numbers together. Let me just make that a little bit bigger so you can see what's going on. And I don't know if you can see the formula at the top. Let me just copy that formula into a cell so you can actually see it. Oops. Escape is your friend if you do something bad in Excel. I'm just going to put a space at the front so that it doesn't think that I'm typing a formula in. Let me just make that a bit bigger. There's a formula that's just automatically been created. So we've got the equal sign to show that it's a formula. And then this is the sheet reference. And then this is the cell reference. And we're saying plus. And then we've got the sheet reference of instructions because we're talking about that sheet down there, you see. Double click on the sheet to change the name of it. Give it a friendly name so you don't forget what it is when you come back to it. Instructions, exclamation mark, cell B14. And we're saying add those two numbers together. And it comes up with that answer there. Anyway, please post in the comments what else you'd like to know how to do. And I'll make a follow-up video and I'll cover some of the things that you post in the comments on the next video. I have a cup with I love spreadsheets written on it for a very good reason. As a self-employed person, spreadsheets are your friend. Have a play around, make a few test spreadsheets, just get used to how the whole thing works. Don't panic. There's no stupid question here. If you've never played with spreadsheets before, this can feel a little bit intimidating. So if you've got any questions at all, please pop them in the comments. And if I can't help you with it, I'm sure someone else will help you with it. But there are a few more fundamental things I want to cover off, but this video is getting quite long and we'll cover that in part 2. Take care folks, stay safe. I shall see you next time. Tatty bye!